loved to smoke, and sometimes he would light a match, and he got so into what he was talking about, he forgot he was with the match. He'd hold the match up like this, like that. I saw it many times. It's unbelievable. So
why did you just think about it?
What?
Why did you just think about it?
Because what we're learning today is I'm sharing with you a recording of, I just listened to Rabbi Yookan. The series of classes about the character of Torah is all based upon his lessons, and I'm listening to him, and it's bringing back a lot of good memories. He's unbelievable the way he explains, he's so methodical, step by step, building a concept. So we're up to, in this discussion about the character of Torah, we're learning about how it says that the mitzvahs that our forefathers did were like fragrances. And we brought the verse, there is the fragrance of the oil, and then there is the oil itself. And the mitzvahs that our forefathers did, they were considered just like good fragrances compared to what we do with our mitzvahs, which are the actual oil. So, although it seems that our mitzvahs are far greater than the mitzvahs that our forefathers did, as the Rambam writes in the explanation of Mishnayos in Character Of Torah, Rambam says, we don't do the mitzvahs because Avraham Avinu did the mitzvahs. We don't circumcise ourselves like Avraham Avinu circumcised himself, just because Avraham circumcised himself. We circumcise ourselves because that's what Hashem commanded us through Moshe Rabbeinu. But then the Rambam adds a line, like Avraham Avinu circumcised himself. So he says, we don't circumcise ourselves because Avraham circumcised himself. We do it because Moshe Rabbeinu did. Moshe Rabbeinu told us to at Mount Sinai. But then he adds, like Avraham Avinu. So on the one hand, he's clearly differentiating between what we're doing and Avraham Avinu and his mitzvahs. And on the other hand, he's clearly aligning our mitzvahs with Avram's mitzvahs and saying that we want our mitzvahs to be like Avram's mitzvahs. So the question is, which one is it? And there must be two different elements here. On the one hand, there's advantage of our mitzvahs. Our mitzvahs are called the oil. His mitzvahs are only called the fragrance. On the other hand, there must be something about his mitzvahs that we need, and that's why we're saying that our mitzvahs are like his mitzvahs. So, what is the difference between the mitzvahs that our forefathers did and the mitzvahs that we do? And after we go through this, God willing, in the next class we'll be able to answer this question. Well, let's go understand a little bit more about the mitzvahs that we're doing and mitzvahs that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did. Their mitzvahs that they did were only spiritual. For example, the mitzvah of tefillin, the Alter Rebbe proves from the mitzvah of tefillin that when the Talmud says that our forefathers fulfilled all the mitzvahs, the Alter Rebbe said it must be only a spiritual performance, not a physical one, because he gives an example, a proof from tefillin. You can't say that they put on tefillin because in the tefillin itself it talks about the Exodus, and there was no Exodus that happened. There was no Exodus at the time of Avraham Avinu. So when we say that he put on tefillin, it must be something spiritual. It can't be a physical thing. And that's how the Alter Rebbe answers a question that all the commentaries ask. All the commentaries are wondering this. If Avram Avinu kept the whole Torah before it was given, then why didn't he circumcise himself until Hashem commanded him to circumcise himself? If he kept everything before Hashem told him, before the Torah was given, then why this mitzvah specifically did he not do? And the answer is that he did do this mitzvah of circumcision before he was given the commandment, the same way he did every other mitzvah. How did he do every other mitzvah? Every other mitzvah he did spiritually. The mitzvah of circumcision he also did spiritually. So that you can't ask the question, why didn't he do this mitzvah? He did. He did this mitzvah the same way he did every other mitzvah. He did this mitzvah spiritually, and that's what he did by every other mitzvah. And when Hashem finally commanded him to do this mitzvah physically, he did this mitzvah physically as well. But before Hashem commanded him, he did this mitzvah only spiritually. And the reason why the mitzvahs were only done spiritually is because before the giving of the Torah, there was this decree, there was a decree that the physical world cannot be elevated to the spiritual, and therefore there was no point of doing a mitzvah physically because you couldn't change the physical reality anyways. That's why the mitzvahs were done spiritually. Now, although he only did these mitzvahs spiritually, and he wasn't doing the same mitzvahs that we're doing physically, that doesn't mean he didn't do anything physical. He definitely did something physical as well, like we find about tefillin itself. It says in the Zohar that when Yaakov peeled the sticks when he was mating the sheep of Lavan, he accomplished, the Zohar says, the same thing we accomplished by putting on tefillin. So he did do something physical as well. And Yaakov was channeling the energy of tefillin by peeling the sticks. However, when Yaakov peeled the sticks, he didn't change the sticks. The sticks didn't become holy. Unlike when we put on tefillin, the actual physical tefillin is now a chetza shel kedusha. There is something there that we do not see in the tefillin. There's a godly, holy light in the tefillin. And when you put on tefillin, you're channeling and connecting yourself to Hashem in a way that we can't with our senses, we can't possibly process. So the staffs, the sticks that Yaakov was channeling the energy of tefillin with did not change. But the question is this. Two questions. Question number one is, if he didn't change the sticks, then why did he have to do anything with the sticks at all? And number two, if he was trying to channel the energy of tefillin, then why not do something why not do the same thing that we do when we try to channel the spiritual energy of tefillin? If he wanted to connect to the spiritual energy of tefillin, it would seem he should do the same thing that we do when we put on tefillin. And if it was just a spiritual activity, not a physical one, so why do you have to do anything physical? So today, in order to bring down the godly energy of tefillin, you have to do the exact formula that halacha says to bring down the holiness of Hashem in tefillin. If it's one letter missing, you can't draw down the godly energy. It's missing. Someone was showing me yesterday a mezuzah, and the sofer made a little marking on the mezuzah where the problem was, and the problem was that this guy, he kept in the bag the sofer's recommendation that the together with the unbound mezuzahs, but he wasn't sure which recommendation was for which mezuzah. So he wasn't sure if the sofer was saying this has an issue but it's still kosher, or if it wasn't kosher. And I'm not a sofer. I'm just guessing. Oh yeah, I could see what his issue was probably with this letter, with that letter. But you have to think. Why have to think? Because it's not so obvious. This nun could be interpreted as a zayin. This nun could be interpreted as a chaf. The tiny change, and yet that tiny change determines whether or not this mezuzah is kosher or not kosher.
We were on time in Shabbaton, and that was the beginning of the internet, and he pointed out what's now is famous. In those days, it was no self-autocorrect was not as if you put one letter different, you go totally off a whole different place.
Right.
Just one letter different.
I love the story of Rabbi Mas, Arn Mas from Sydney. He's responding to this guy. This guy asked him the question. He said, I wrote you already 7 emails, and you don't answer my emails. My question is, why is it so important to do every mitzvah so precisely? and then listen. So then he said, the actual answer to your question is in the reason why I didn't respond to you, because your first 6 emails where it said there was a dot missing from the email address. Unbelievable. Well, it's like divine providence, yeah. Seen in a vivid way.
Yeah.
Anyways,
very vivid way.
So the question though is, if they weren't changing the physical reality, like our mitzvahs do change the physical reality. So then, why was it important that they do anything at all? So the answer, there's 2 answers. The first answer is that our forefathers were a chariot to Hashem's will. And the second answer is that our forefathers, their deeds were a preparation for us. The deeds of our forefathers are a sign for us, their children. The first explanation we went over last class. Let's briefly summarize it. By every person, by every feeling that you have expresses itself in your physical body. You feel happy, so your cheeks they're colored differently. Especially if you're very happy, if you're embarrassed, if you're angry, your physical body mirrors the feelings that you have. Now, there's no point in the actual color of your face. The point is your feelings. That's what your experience as a human being. So what's the point of the color of your face changing? And vis-a-vis, maybe there is a point in the reaction Hashem orchestrating in the world so that people should know you're happy, etc. Fine. But for yourself, there's also something. But in other words, there's something intrinsic about your body changing physiologically because of your feelings. What's happening is that your spiritual feeling is affecting your physical body. Your body and your animal soul or your vivifying soul, your nefesh hachiyunis, are united, and therefore whatever happens to your soul, whatever happens to your vivifying soul, the soul which animates your body, as it says in Tanya that that in our bloodstream there is a vivifying soul, the nefesh hachiyunis. So whatever is happening in our nefesh hachiyunis is mirrored in our body, because our body is a chariot to our animal soul. Our body is a chariot to our vivifying soul, the soul which is animating us. It's called the animating soul. It's a better word. I know vivifying is. Anyways, but then there is our forefathers. Our forefathers weren't just a chariot to their animating soul, they were a chariot to their divine soul. So that means that whatever was happening in their neshama automatically happened in their body. It wasn't just, Shalom Aleichem, what's makted. Whatever happened to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in their neshama automatically had a mirror effect in their physical body. Their body and their neshama were so united that if something happened in soul, it happened also in body. And because they had different souls, therefore there was a different effect in their bodies. There was a different effect in what they did physically when they did something. For example, Avraham Avinu, his attribute of serving Hashem was with kindness. So he did all 613 mitzvahs spiritually in the channeling them through the element of kindness. So therefore his physical actions that his body did because his soul was serving Hashem in a spiritual way, that physical mirror effect that he had in his body, similar to our body becomes changes, our cheeks change color when we're happy. Avraham Avinu's body and his life, he did physical things that mirrored his spiritual activity in all the 630 mitzvahs that he did.
Even the mitzvahs like I said that he would do would be from Abba? Would be coming from Abba?
Of course. Avinu, everything he did was colored through his attribute of chesed. Even like say. But on the other hand, you're right. It says that Avraham Avinu, uniquely after the story of the Akedah, Hashem said, "Now I know that you fear me as well." Right? Avinu had that specifically by the Akedah, Avram exhibited his reverence for Hashem, but his main service to Hashem was with chesed. But even the story of the Akedah, we find that Avram got up in the morning early, and the Alter says that was because of his great love for Hashem. So his he was definitely a human being with all 10 soul powers, but the main channel, the way he observed Yiddishkeit, was with his with the attribute of chesed. So because his chesed was what colored everything that he did, so therefore he did different things in Yitzchak. None of the others did the mitzvahs that we do the way that we do them, but they all did them uniquely in their own way, because what they were doing was merely channeling their spiritual activity. It had a physical effect in their body. Just like when we were happy, we smile. When Avinu was putting on film spiritually, that had some kind of physical effect in what he did, and he dug wells, whatever he was doing. Yitzchak dug wells, and Yaakov peeled sticks. Whatever they were doing physical, all the stories the Torah tells us are all an expression of their spiritual service of Hashem, and they're observing the 650 mitzvahs spiritually. So that's one reason why they did mitzvahs physically. It wasn't just, the goal wasn't the physical mitzvahs themselves, rather it was just about their goal was to do something spiritual, not just had a mirror effect on their physical body. And they did them differently because based on who they were spiritually. That's one reason they did things spiritually. But there's another reason. Other reason is, it says that Avram Avinu, Yitzchak and Yaakov, our forefathers, they paved the way for us. Ma'aseh Avisim Laban. It wasn't just their own experience, how they experienced things, but it was something that they did specifically in order to empower us. Hashem wanted there to be, before there be the Jewish people, there be the Avram and Yaakov, there in order to make it possible for the Torah to be given. The Torah couldn't have been given without their service of Hashem happening first. Their service of Hashem is what allows our mitzvahs to be done physically and to have a physical effect in the world. So, today, our mitzvahs are all about the physical impact. There's also a spiritual element there as well. Because Hashem wants not just to have a home in this world, but to have a luminous home. Therefore, Hashem wants us to have kavana when we do mitzvah. To have to think about why we're doing a mitzvah, the meaning of the mitzvah. The body of the mitzvah is a physical action that draws down godliness. But in order for the godliness to be revealed, it's through the simcha, through the joy in the mitzvah. As everyone said, that without the joy in the mitzvah, there's no revelation. The revelation is through the simcha in the mitzvah. But since the stuff our mitzvahs are made of are about the making a home for Hashem, therefore the focus is exact formula that Hashem gave in the Torah to draw down His essence in the mitzvah. But our forefathers, even the second explanation, that their purpose of their mitzvahs was in order to empower us, it's only an example, it's only a sign for us. It's still not the same thing. In other words, according to the first explanation, that they're just doing their own spiritual thing that has some mirror effect in their physical experience. Certainly they're not doing the same mitzvahs that we're doing. They're just doing whatever they're experiencing spiritually. They're experiencing the mitzvah differently spiritually themselves. But according to the second explanation, that they're preparing the world for us to do mitzvahs, there's still no need for them to do the same thing that we're doing.
Has to have some shaykhs, no?
Has to have some shaykhs, but not to be exactly the same. Let's say, for example, a prophecy. It says in order for a prophet to give a prophecy, he has to do something physical for the prophecy to have an effect in the physical world. Like it says about Yecheskel, when Hashem gave Yecheskel a prophecy, He told him to lie down on his right side, lie down on his left side, and to take Gela. He'll do physical things in the world to draw down the prophecy into the physical world, because as Nachmanides says and the Ran writes, that it's possible that a prophecy happens and it's fulfilled only spiritually. Like the famous story of the Tzemach Tzedek and the Marash, that in the year Tafresh Ches, Tafresh Ches is, what year is that? Okay, no one's here is 1836, I think. No, 1838. In 1838 was some kind of a case. It was some time of a time in Mashiach was 1848. 1848.
The Coup d'État, right?
Oh, some kind of it says that was a time that would that there was a case that it was known that this is an opportune time for Mashiach to come, and Mashiach didn't come. So the Emarash went to his father and said, "Dad, Mashiach was supposed to come. Why didn't he come?" And his father said, "What do you mean? Look what the Torah was printed. The Torah is revealing the deeper secrets of the Torah. That's what Mashiach's going to do. That's." So his father, so the Emarash told his father, "Yes, Dad, but we need Mashiach to keep here physically." And everyone said about the story. It's not that Tzemach Tzedek didn't know it. That we need Mashiach physically. Of course, we need Mashiach physically, but he wanted his son to say it. He wanted his son to challenge what he said. But there still was something of Mashiach's coming that was achieved spiritually. The Geula continued to come to the world, and there's a dramatic change in the coming Mashiach's impact in the world through the Kli Torah being printed. So you have a Kli Torah right there in front of you, right? But you don't see the Levias and other Sharaber. You have a Sefer. But from someone who has luminous eyes, this is Mashiach. There's a revelation of godliness. So in a similar way, the prophecies that Hashem gave the others, gave to all different prophets, it could be they would just be fulfilled spiritually, not fulfilled physically. And like the Kli Torah being printed as some impact of there was some kind of vision that Mashiach was going to come in that year, but that vision was fulfilled by the Kli Torah being printed, not Mashiach actually coming. So in order for there to be some kind of, in order for the spiritual prophecy to have a physical impact, the way it's supposed to be, there has to be, the prophet has to do something physical to channel it physically. And that's why our forefathers did something physical, but not the same thing that we're doing. However, there was one mitzvah that needed to be exactly the same as our mitzvahs in order to connect all the mitzvahs that they did spiritually to our mitzvahs. And that was the mitzvah circumcision. The mitzvah circumcision uniquely, brisi b'bsarchem, my covenant in your flesh, that uniquely had a physical impact in the physical world. It wasn't just a prelude, an example, but it actually had, it's not the same as the kedusha that was brought down after giving the Torah in circumcision, but something of that kedusha that is post-Sinai, it's associated with the post-Sinai experience, something of that was drawn down in the circumcision of Avram Avinu, and that's why when Eliezer needed to swear to Avraham, Avram told Eliezer to simno yachad achazereche, even though it seems the opposite of modesty. And yet he told him to do this. Why? Because the only holy object at that time was the circumcision of Avram. So in order to, we swear today, make an oath, we hold on to Parat Tefillin, we hold on to Sefer Torah, because it's something that has the holiness of Hashem in the physical world. So in that time, the only thing that had something similar to the holiness of Hashem in the physical world that we experienced after the giving of the Torah was in circumcision. And that's why the Avram told his servant to make this oath. He had to hold an holy object. The only thing that was holy in the physical world was the meal of Avram Avinu. So, in short, what we learned today is we learned that there are two reasons why the forefathers had to do physical mitzvahs, although they didn't have a physical impact in the world. Reason number one is because their mitzvahs were just mirroring their spiritual experience. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were serving Hashem in some spiritual plane, and that, just like ourselves, our physical body reacts to our spiritual experience. Our animating soul has happiness. Our body has a physiological reaction to happiness. So too, Avram Avinu is doing the mitzvah of welcoming his guests, or that's physical action, but he's doing the mitzvah of Shulach HaKan, sending away the mother bird spiritually. That has some kind of physical manifestation in his physical reality. He's doing something different physically. That's a result of his complete devotion to Hashem and doing this mitzvah spiritually. And the second reason we learned today is that Avram Avinu's mitzvahs were also meant to be an example to our mitzvahs. And according to both explanations, we understand that Avram Avinu didn't do the same thing that we do with our physical mitzvahs, because, according to the first explanation, it's just his spiritual experience and has some kind of physical manifestation, but it's not about affecting the physical world. And according to the second explanation, it's only meant to be an example of what we do today, but not the same thing, and therefore it doesn't have to be the exact same film that we're doing, just something spiritual that Avram Avinu is doing that has some kind of physical manifestation, but not the same way that we put on film today. And the next class, we'll go back to our question, why does the Rambam say that we do mitzvahs because of Avram Avinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu commanded us in the Torah, and yet he also says we're not just doing the mitzvahs, but he also adds a line, like Avram Avinu did the mitzvahs. On the one hand, he's saying we're not doing it because of Avram, we're doing it because of Moshe Rabbeinu told us in the Torah. And then he adds a line, like Avram Avinu. So what's the reason that Rambam mentions both must be an advantage in the mitzvahs that Avram Avinu did, and that's why we're highlighting, we're circumcising ourselves like Avram. On the other hand, the Rambam is saying we don't do it because of Avram, we do it because of Moshe Rabbeinu, which we'll get to that in the next class.
You still have 4 minutes.
Do you have a question?
No.
All right.
Well, there you go. That's not good.
Oh, but last week you mentioned that even when Yaakov spoke to Lavan, that was actually a manifestation of Hashem. It wasn't just that conversation. It was
Something was accomplished spiritually, physically.
Yeah.
It even says, only if you watch cartoons can you appreciate this, but it says that when Yaakov left Lavan chased after him.
Yeah.
And when Lavan chased after him, he caught Yaakov and had a conversation. So it says in Chassidus, why did Lavan chase after Yaakov? Because although Yaakov took all the sparks of holiness away from Lavan, there were still a few sparks left.
Mm.
And in order for those sparks to be elevated, there had to be another section of the Torah. Those sparks became the section of the Torah. So he's chasing after Yaakov, and in the process, there's more Torah being written. Because that's those sparks of holiness that were left by by Lavan, we're now transferred into the Torah, and then additional section of Torah by him running after Yaakov. Unbelievable. So he's running after Yaakov, and he's thinking his thing. And what's really going on is there's sparks of Tush that have to be elevated, and how they elevate in the story itself. It's
Breaking so well.
How do I send this to you? I couldn't figure this out. I don't know where to go.